And next, I'm going to pass it over to Patrick to demo the DevHub migration to ARO. So go ahead, Patrick.
Cool, awesome. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. That's probably the best way of doing this. So over this past increment, we have had a OpenShift cluster deployed in Azure, or also known as ARO, Azure Red Hat OpenShift. And my task was to kind of explore deploying the DevHub or developer.gov.bc.ca onto this new cluster. Now I'm not 100% there. There's a ton I've learned, and if I were to like capture all this work into one word, it would be improvement. Because what it did is really like open my eyes to like all the little steps that you need to remember when trying to deploy infrastructure. I found it's not good enough just to have your infrastructure code. Like if you haven't documented all the steps and all the things you need to do in order, it can be a bit more time consuming. One thing that I can demo is I had successfully migrated Matomo, which is a web analytics component, over to ARO, including its state. And that's going to be something that's really important for all teams that have like a database and they want to migrate to one cloud, whether that's ARO or any other cloud that's available. You're going to want your production app to behave exactly the same from a user's perspectives, and that means you're going to need to migrate your state over. Matomo is really interesting. Sorry, there's a garbage truck. This is terrible. Matomo is really interesting in that, like many PHP apps, it has tons of like configuration files that are written everywhere. And so what I tried to illustrate here is that there's actually a couple of different places that I needed to back up state from the 3.11 cluster and then pretty much restore it in the ARO cluster. So there's some like nitty gritty on that. I'm going to be writing docs on this process itself, but essentially what you're going to be doing when you do this type of migration is you're going to want to take a backup of your state, or regularly take a backup of your state, and then when you're ready to do that swap over is do that restore. And ideally this can be automated. For me, I did this manually, and that's because I'm not very familiar with MySQL and MariaDB, so I had to do a lot of learning on those, the database administration. So right now it's manual, but I'm going to be converting that into Ansible. The pull request that I'd like to share with you guys, and I'll toss this in the chat, is going to be a place where wrong pull request is going to be a place where we're going to be documenting all of these migration processes. There's a lot of great tools that I've encountered, such as how to easily change between clusters using the OCCLI, and some things that I've had to consider when doing the migrations, like missing images because you're trying to pull an image from the BCGov namespace, or like key cloak integration. All of these things I wish I had documented as a part of my infrastructure process, and I hadn't. And I've learned from it. So I'm going to document it now and share it with the greater team. And just like any good cooking show, we have to like demonstrate the finished product. So this is Matomo deployed in ARO. And it has all of the same data that our production DevHub data came from the 3.11 cluster. So overall, it was a success. It was pretty painful because again, like PHP apps tend to have like a million config files that I had to like figure out like where they existed and migrate them over. But the good news is like I've gone through that pain, so you guys don't have to. I'm looking forward to migrating the rest of the DevHub. I just hit a few snags with Jenkins, and once that's ready to go, I'll look forward to sharing that with you guys. Any questions?
Thank you, Patrick. Exploration of the OpenShift managed service in the Microsoft Azure is one of our top priorities, and this is the work that's happening in parallel with the OpenShift 4 build out kind of mainstream activities, where we're building the silver cluster, and then we'll be moving on to build the gold and the gold DR. So before we can understand how ARO, which stands for Azure Red Hat OpenShift, cluster can be added as an extension to the on-prem platform footprint, we need to learn about what's available there. So the work that Patrick is leading on the DevHub migration will allow us to collect the information about what the experience is like for the teams in ARO, and then we can figure out how to add it to our service offering. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Thanks, guys.